The blanket protest had failed to win concessions within the prison. The authorities now increased the pressure. They ordered prisoners to wear uniforms before leaving their cells to go to take a shower or use the lavatory.
We were saying, no, we're not doing that. So chamber pots were overflowing in cells, so there was urine spilled all over the floors, and the only way to get rid of it was toss it out the window. When they put it out the windows, they came around and they blocked up the windows. So then they started pushing it out the door, and they came up with a squeegee and pushed it back in again.
The disposal of human waste now became both a symbolic act and the actual weapon of protest.
At the beginning, the people just kept their waste in the corner, and then people were saying, look, that's going to smell. They kill the sort of smell in the cell. The best way to do it was to spread it around the wall. So it was like, if you like, it was a decision that was born out of necessity.
Raymond McCartney, Director of Operations, Provisional IRA, Derry Brigade, sentenced to life for the murder of 2 Protestants.
If you walked in at the start, you would smell it, but after a couple of weeks, you didn't bother you. It wasn't the first time I stood there, had a cup of tea and a sandwich in the cell.
We're political prisoners! We want political status! We're political prisoners! Look at that blanket man!
We were still fighting the war in the jail, and that's what it was. We weren't dying yet. We were still fighting them. They were still trying to break us.
Up the road!
I seen the hair growing down his back. I seen the vermin walking down his cheeks, his teeth turning into cheese, and the smell, absolutely appalling. I went outside and nearly vomited, but he didn't know that.
We were lying on the floor with one blanket, no pillows, maggots coming out of the corner. Many's the night we woke up and maggots all over you. You know, with excess food was left, with your excreta going into the corner and so forth. The seagulls used to love the blanket men, because most mornings we got up and fed the seagulls the maggots that you'd slept with all night.
You talk about the terrible conditions. You created the conditions.
Yeah. Well, we would disagree with that, because we never created the policy in the first place, you know. The prisons was built for that purpose, to undermine the Republican movement. We had to get our message across why these things happened.
But their suffering was failing to win the wider political support they needed.
In June 1980, after investigating the situation in the maze, the European Commission of Human Rights concluded that the IRA prisoners had no grounds whatever for claiming special political status, and that their filthy conditions were all self-imposed by the prisoners themselves.
By late 1980, there were almost 500 men on the protest. The Catholic Church sought to break the stalemate, and Cardinal O'Fee made a visit.
I was hardly able to speak because I was afraid of vomiting dirt around the walls and excreta and rotten food and so on, and slops on emptied, thrown around the place. It was a horrible state of affairs.
But Mrs. Thatcher was in no mood to compromise. Lord Mountbatten and her close friend Ery Neave had recently been assassinated, and the IRA had killed 18 soldiers at Warren Point.
There can be no such thing as political status. If ever you were to call a crime a political crime, you would be putting the lives, all of the people, at stake. Murder, maiming, bombing, violence are crimes. They are crimes against humanity.
After 4 years, the dirty protesters had nowhere to go. Their protest had failed. The prison authorities ordered the forced cleaning of the cells and the prison. But if the British government thought this would break Republican resistance, they were mistaken. IRA commander Brendan Hughes decided to escalate the confrontation.
I remember Brendan Hughes getting up to the door, and he told us, anybody thinking about hunger strike, he says, this isn't for fun. He says, hunger strike is a terrifying experience.
I warned everyone that someone's going to die. We may all die in this hunger strike. Be prepared for it. Don't put your name forward unless you're prepared to die. We believed that the support was there, and we could break Thatcher on this.
The IRA Army Council strongly opposed a hunger strike because it felt that it should be in control. But the men in the H blocks insisted. On the 27th of October 1980, Brendan Hughes and 6 others refused food.
They used to leave 2 meals down on the floor. Breakfast time, dinner time, supper time. My meal remained there. The guy was in the cell with me ate his. And it became so embarrassing for him that I would turn my back and face the wall while he was eating. And there was a slight bit of envy there, right? There was this guy sitting behind me eating, and I could hear him eating. I could smell the food.
Meals were brought into them every time. A meal was taken out, a new meal was left in, and it was recorded that the prisoner was refused. There's nothing I can do to make them eat. I'm not going to sit there and throw it down their throat. Hold them down there, and then I get accused of brutality then.
The idea of protesters prepared to starve themselves to death cast these men, usually seen as terrorists, in a new light.
Raymond McCartney has set himself on the road to Republican martyrdom. Now aged 26, he spent the last 8 years of his life fighting the British. McCartney is serving life imprisonment for 2 murders. Now he has the support of those who march in his home city.
When a camera crew filmed Raymond McCartney, the hunger strike got its enduring image.
It was the first time I'd ever faced a camera in my life. The fella who was doing it knelt down beside the bed, and I think he asked me, why should the British government give in to your demands, you know?
We and my 6 comrades are prepared to go through with this, and we are prepared to die to prove that we are special prisoners and our 5 basic demands are just.
There wasn't a great deal of fat in any of us. Your body eats that up first, then it works on the muscles. Your brain takes the glucose out of your muscles till eventually that all goes, and then your body starts to work off the glucose in your brain, and that starts to go. And that's when your eyesight goes, your hearing goes, your smelling goes, and then that's you on the way out.
They expect to die, and then others will take their place. There's no doubt about that. But I'd hope that wiser counsels will prevail among with the British authorities and with the various negotiators, and they'll be able to defuse the situation.